mean Tim, but I'm terrified to be up here, but God willing, I'm getting better at this.
Amen.
Each and every time I'm up here, man. Alright, let's start in, alright? Hello everybody, my name is Timothy Michael Darland. I am a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I struggle with addictions to drugs and alcohol, all byproducts of fear. My childhood was good, raised by my grandmother and grandfather, a beautiful soul and a hardworking man. My mom worked and went to college to provide for me. My father was absent while I was young due to prison and struggling with his own demons to drugs, which led to schizophrenia. May he rest easy. My dad passed on this week. He had cancer. He's in a better place, and I know he's proud of me. In school, I struggled at first. I was held back in first grade and put back into kindergarten in the special needs class. I overcame this and maintained A's and B's all the way throughout school. When I entered high school, I began running with a rough crowd that thought smoking weed, drinking, doing drugs, lifting weights, having a girlfriend, tattoos, parties, and getting your head knocked around in backyard boxing matches were all cool things to have or do. Before long, I had or was doing all these things trying to fit in. I finally felt accepted into a group of misfits, and there was no admission. I felt a camaraderie, a brotherhood I had never experienced before. I continued drinking and doing drugs most of my high school career, maintaining my 4.0 GPA. This is how I justified my behavior. I remember going to school most days drunk. One day in class, passed out on my desk, my teacher woke me up and said, "Tim, wake up, you should really pay attention, and your eyes are redder than the inside of your coat." I looked up at the teacher and replied, "I had the highest grade in the class," and put my head back down and fell asleep. I guess she couldn't argue with that because she left me alone. This attitude continued throughout high school. Even though I was clumsy and not the best at sports, I could run, and boy could I run. I had a 4:59 mile with no conditioning or training. My gym teacher told me I had a real talent, and with his help he could get me into any college in the state. Again, I foolishly replied I would rather party and drink. He never bothered me again about it. I wish I would have known what I know now, because I would have paid more attention and expanded on my gifts. I graduated early and entered into the workforce, taking jobs in construction, firefighting, and the oil fields. My grandfather gave me the advice, go where the money is, and that's exactly what I did. Taking jobs mostly in the oil fields as a floor hand, I fell in love with the lifestyle of long hours, physical work, money, drugs, and alcohol. I thought I was truly living it up. Today I would ask myself, why weren't you? Sorry, I lost my voice. That living every day like it was my last attitude, I realize now was just a death wish. I thought I had found happiness, but it was always short-lived. It was never enough. Experimenting with painkillers, as time went on, I turned to meth and heroin. I quit my job and eventually turned to the needle. This left me submerged in one of my life's biggest struggles. I changed as a person completely. Everything I stood for went out the window. I had lost all hope. My relationships all started to go south, especially with Amanda, my girlfriend. Even turning violent. Not something I'm proud of, but it did happen. But speaking of Peanut, I call her Peanut. Sounds cute, right? Yeah, she's my sweet pea, but she's nuts. But anyhow, she likes the recognition of me telling everyone we are together, but doesn't like being put on the spot. Confusing set of rules, am I right? Maybe that's why we went to couples counseling. Apparently I don't listen very well. By the way, she's right there. be time for more therapy sessions. I isolated myself and only lived for the next high, not able to function effectively in society. I hung around questionable people and participated in felonious crimes. Truly, I was just looking for someone to accept me at this point. I felt very alone. I didn't know where to turn. And at that time, I didn't have much of a relationship with God. And when I thought of church, I thought of judgment. Not here, not at CR, not at Rock Springs. It's a good church. Eventually, my family caught on and found a stash of my needles. I told them I wanted to go to rehab. I didn't really think I could ever truly be sober, but wanted to try. I found an incredible rehab in Texas called the Tree House. I packed up my bags, but not quite wanting to give up my addiction, I left a stash of heroin and meth for my return. When I got there, it took 2 weeks before I got out of bed. I only had the strength to eat and use the bathroom. I finally got enough strength to start attending classes, but I was not focused on my recovery. I mostly thought of getting through it so I could go home and get high. But this time, I was going to manage it. Yeah, all right. One important moment I do remember when I was there was I had a nightmare. I woke screaming. My roommate asked me if I was okay. I told him, yeah, and I went back to sleep. But the dream really stuck with me. The day I graduated, I was eating breakfast with the rehab pastor. He asked me if I wanted to go fishing with him and a few others. I, of course, went. After all, I really liked his sermons, and he also had a wilderness program I liked. We began talking while fishing, and I told him of this nightmare I had. I told him that it was of a tree covered in Medusa heads as the fruit, with crows shrieking and picking at them. The sight of it terrified me until one of the crows would knock a head off the tree. I would then start to walk towards this terrifying sight, and as I got closer, I began to feel comfort and joy and would walk through this tree, and on the other side was a beautiful grassy meadow. I would then turn and see the tree again and became frightened, but would walk towards it again, and this happened repeatedly until I woke up screaming. The pastor asked me, "What do you get from this dream you had?" I wasn't quite sure, and I said, "I don't know." He told me I would stop reaching for that low-hanging fruit. That message really stuck with me. I related it to drugs and how I kept relapsing. I graduated rehab, flew home, and relapsed right away. I want to play a video for you guys right now. What do you mean nothing happens if I go to rehab?
What do you mean nothing happens? I didn't say anything, Tim. I just started my car.
Go.
Put your seatbelt on.
Okay. Are we really getting out of here, or is this going right into something again?
Going right.
This was me within 2 weeks after rehab. I had snapped and was dealing with drug-induced schizophrenia. I was documenting everything for some reason. I thought I was being followed and everyone was plotting against me. The lady I was talking to was my mom. She literally had to play into my delusion to get me into the vehicle and back to rehab. I flew back to Texas and within 5 hours was checked into rehab again. I remember that same day the pastor found me and asked me how I was doing. I explained that I was having a hard time and wasn't sure what reality was tearfully. He said, "All right, can I pray with you?" I agreed. After we got done praying, I told him, "I guess I should have stayed away from that low-hanging fruit, huh?" He chuckled and said, "You're starting to see the message." During this rough time, I kept seeing "this too shall pass" written randomly on things at rehab. I clung to this verse and repeated it daily to remind me that the human condition changes and this was not forever. This time around, I buckled down after I got my strength back, attending lots of classes, sermons, horseback riding, fishing, zip lining, taking walks, talking with the pastor, and learning techniques to survive in the wild through his wilderness program. Even eating copperhead and rat snake tastes a lot like greasy bacon. I was also baptized right there in rehab. I even decided to join a sober living after graduating a second time and attending AA meetings. These programs kept me sober, but I always felt it was only a matter of time before I relapsed, and rightfully so. I returned home and relapsed once again, really not knowing what to do, and with limited options for recovery in Cortez, I thought back to the pastor's sermons in rehab and how they gave me a feeling of hope. So I decided I was going to go to church, and I had previously attended the Rock Springs church 10 years prior, and I really liked Pastor Dave's sermons. So I gave it a shot. I remember being welcomed by friendly faces. It was reassuring that I had made the right decision. I don't remember the sermon. What I do remember was it was like Pastor Dave's message was directed right at me. I guess it was all part of God's plan for me, because I also learned of this Christian-based recovery group called Celebrate Recovery. Yeah. I immediately started attending. I was met with smiles and smiling faces and hugs, something I wasn't used to in my addiction. Most of the time I couldn't even get eye contact. The first night I was told of a step study by a big biker named Chris. I was hesitant at first, but I was at my wit's end. I tried everything in my will, and society's suggestions just weren't cutting it. I agreed to attend. 2 days before the program, I relapsed, and I was still halfway hallucinating when it came time to attend the program. I had Amanda drive me because I didn't want to put anyone's life at risk while I was high. I remember sitting in the parking lot contemplating if I should go in or not. Amanda asked me if I was sure I wanted to go in, telling me they were going to know something was wrong with you. I sat there for a second and explained that I didn't care what they thought of me. It's time for a change. I want this. I want to be sober. I exited the vehicle and went in, so nervous that I kept clenching my book hard. I believe everyone knew, but I did it anyhow. I even apologized to Bob afterwards. I felt horrible, but he said that he didn't mind and he was glad I was there. I kept on showing up for these meetings and CR. It became routine. I felt this feeling I've never had before, like I was becoming whole. Turning my will over to the Lord gave me vision. My life finally started to make sense. CR gave me hope, and every time I went in, it was like it rejuvenated my soul. The CR family gave me that human connection I sorely needed and brought me to God. I found true friends, brothers and sisters through this program and step study. We don't hang out every day, but we are there when it truly matters. I started to do good but got complacent on December 23rd, 2018. I thought I would get high one last time. Well, that one last time could have been my last moment. I overdosed on meth. I literally thought I was going to die. My heart was skipping beats. I was fading in and out, buckling at the knees. I tried to make a phone call, but couldn't keep focused long enough. My vision was too blurred to dial. No one was around, but I was not alone. Suddenly, I started to see these beautiful orbs. Now, I've had a lot of hallucinations over the past couple of years, usually terrifying and demonic in nature, but nothing like this experience. I was a little afraid at first until they started to communicate with me, and not in the way I am with you right now. Instead of speaking through sound, emotions formed words, almost telepathically. They told me not to fear. They were there to help and strengthen me. They told me I had not fought my last fight. I had not given all I had to give. I felt a feeling of a hug of unconditional love, but much more intense. I believe that I was visited by angels that night. I watched them for what seemed to be hours in awe, unable to move. It was like they were watching over me as somebody would when a family member is sick in a hospital bed. I don't even recall how it all ended, but that was the last time I relapsed, and I believe I was given a second chance at life that night. For that second chance, I hope I'm making my Lord and Savior proud. I am now 7 months clean. I think it's about 8 months now, but including from medications. I have replaced my old habits with new ones, like rafting, riding horses, fishing, hitting the gym consistently. I walked in here at 170. I walk out of here a proud 225. That says something about this program and God. I also attend counseling, and as well as couples counseling church, and I'm going back to college. And this big old guy even writes poetry. I would have laughed at myself before. I'm pretty much a yes man today. If you ask me to join you doing something and I can, I'm your huckleberry. I am always willing to help, and I want to. I lived life for my experiences and not my money and possessions. Amanda and I are still together, both sober, and working through our problems, which I was told was impossible by the rehab. I guess it's true. Through Christ, all things are possible. You know, when I arrived back in Cortez from Dallas, my mom left a book on my nightstand. The title was How to Live Sober. I instantly took a disliking to this book, not because I didn't want to live sober, but I wanted so much more than that. Needless to say, I never did read that book. Instead, I've written my own book, an autobiography of sorts, a testimony, and in it I've learned to thrive in sobriety with God. Today, I feel that I am becoming a strong member of society and my community. But more importantly, I feel that I am becoming a mighty warrior in God's army. I am living life again, and it's great. For 15 years, I was bound down by drugs and alcohol. You know the reason I believe this was? Fear, guys. Fear of not being liked, fear of failure, fear of success, fear of making a move, fear ran just about every aspect of my life. I no longer live in fear. I now take it on like an animal. I size it up, take it head on, and attack it and pick it apart. I have realized fear is only as powerful as I make it. I will tell you a funny story about fear. I wanted to get a tattoo at 18, but I wanted to make sure it was something I could live with the rest of my life. I didn't want to regret it when I got older. Well, I opened the Bible in a hotel room one day while I was bored and opened it up to Joshua 1:9. Be strong and of good courage, fear not, nor be dismayed. I really thought this would be a cool tattoo on my side. It's good, strong words to live by, am I right? I went in, had it tattooed on my side. Everything seemed good, but I realized after it said, be strong and of good courage, fear not, nor be afraid. You guys catch the mistake? It says afraid, not dismayed. So it says pretty much twice, not to fear. I was embarrassed by this at first, hoping people would not catch the mistake, but I have a different take on it now. I guess God really wanted me to get the message, not to live in fear. I just wish he would have used a different canvas to paint the picture. Thank you for listening to my testimony. I hope you enjoyed and could take something from my experience. But one more thing, I got something for you. I have a poem for you. I told you I write poetry, I wasn't joking, and now it's my 15 minutes of fame. I'm gonna make you listen. I should copyright this, but I think the words need to be out there regardless. I'm just joking, it's not that good. I never thought I would admit to defeat, but found myself on my knees, begging God, oh help me please. In that moment, that man was gone, and God created a new one, tougher and wiser than the last, for he knew that this too shall pass. God had given him a gift to become a force to be reckoned with. Through the grace of God, it can happen for any one of us. That's all I got, guys.